All right, number one, I'm getting used to coming in on that upbeat of one. So remember, when you go to change chords, you gotta wait and make sure you wait and change when you're doing the upstroke. Don't go early. Don't move your hand into position too soon. So like when you finish that A5, you got your 4 and your right hand goes down on the 1, but then you hit the strings on the upbeat of 1 and change the chord at the same time. Like that, the 4 and 3, 4 and 2. Same thing going from the G5 to the C5, 4 and 2, and the C5 to the D5, 4 and 2. So careful with the changes or when you're changing those chords. Here we go, 60. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 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 done. Whoops. There we go. 120. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 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 180. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 240. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeats 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you're doing the repeat, instead of doing the rest symbol here, have this D5 chord ring out over the downbeat of 1 here. So like slowly, and when you go to start your repeat, slowly we'd have this. 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4, and 2, and so on. So yeah, just let that D5 chord ring out just the same way all the other chords are ringing out here. So that rings out across the bar, that rings out across the bar, that rings out across the bar. So yeah, when you go to do the repetition, let this chord ring out across that. I hope that makes sense. All right, number 2. All right, so yeah, remember the this rhythm is the exact same thing as this. So this is the one where you got the 3 different ones. So let's compare. And this is the same thing happened with number 1. Here, let's bring number 1 back up. There. Okay. So yeah, eventually we'll have to have stuff like this. Wait a minute. Sorry, that does not happen with number 1 because of ties going across the bar line. Never mind. These, we have ties within the bar. And that creates a different, or an ability to have the same rhythm done 2 ways. So let's compare this to this, then this to this, and then this to this. So here we got your quarter note, and then here we have an eighth note, then an eighth note tied to an eighth note, which is the same length as a quarter note. And then eighth note, quarter note. It's just up here, it's a lot easier to see where all the downbeats and upbeats are. There you got a quarter note, so that takes up the entire beat. Here we can see the eighth note, and then here we see that eighth note, which will be on the upbeat of 2, and we see that is tied to the downbeat of 3. Here we do not see this being tied to the downbeat of 3. We just need to do the math for it. and understand that that is 2/8 notes long. So if that is played on the downbeat of 1 and this is on the downbeat of 2, with that being an 8th note, that means this has to be on the upbeat of 2. And because that's a quarter note, it is going to last 2/8 notes long. So we strum again on the upbeat of 3, downbeat of 4. So same idea happening here. We got your 8th note. That's an 8th note. This 8th note is tied to an 8th note, which is the same length as a quarter note. 8th note, 8th note, 2 quarter notes, 2 quarter notes. And here we start with the 2 quarter notes, 2 quarter notes, 8th note, 8th note, 8th note tied to an 8th note, which is the same length as a quarter note. Finish with an 8th note, finish with an 8th note. So yes, the rhythmic pattern laid out here is the same rhythmic pattern here. Just a little bit different chords. All right, here we go. Number 2, 60 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 4, 1, and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 4, 1, and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and done. 120. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 4, 1, 180. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 240. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll try the repeats here. This might be tricky. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Number 3, different rhythm. So you have the full rhythmic pattern laid out in the first 2 bars, and then it's repeated for the next 2. So similar thing as the previous rhythm. 2 different ways of looking at it. Not a whole lot of difference here. So because we have this 8th note tied to that 8th note, we can write it out as just a quarter note. So 8th note to 8th note, 8th note tied to an 8th note, which is the same as a quarter note, 8th note, 8th note, quarter note, 2 8th notes, 2 8th notes, and that 8th note is tied across the bar line, same as that, and then, yeah, it's all the same there, 8th note, quarter note, 2 8th notes and a quarter, 2 8th notes and a quarter. So here we go. It's 60. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4, 1, and 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4, done. 120. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 3, 4, and. That was way too high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 3, 4, and 2, 3, and 4, 1, and 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4. 180. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And good old 240. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeats. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Bad change. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. So let's take a look at where, there we go. Right, so we looked at this today, and the idea was, I like looking at this as a circle, so this way, get the idea. When you're playing your scales, it really doesn't matter which scale shape you use when you are improvising a solo, writing a solo, because as long as the chords you're playing on top of, as long as those chords are in key, and you're in key, the same key, it doesn't matter which way you go through those 7 notes, because that's all it is. It's just 7 notes. Different octaves, but yeah, you can bounce around any which way, and it's totally fine. All the different scale shapes will end up using all the same notes anyway. So the pentatonic just used 5 of the 7 notes. And the diatonic, the condensed scale shapes you're going to start working on, well, that has all 7 notes. And then here, I have this written out, because just another way of looking at how similar each of the mode things are. So like with this, we use that C major scale, when I did earlier. Basically that second scale shape. But don't play the B note at the bottom. Just start there in that C. We'd have the C Ionian. And then we start the next note up, we'd have D Dorian, so basically just D to D. And then E to E is E Phrygian. Notice this is all within that scale shape too. And then F to F would be F Lydian. And then G to G is G Mixolydian. A to A would be A Aeolian, also known as your natural minor scale. And then B to B is B Locrian. And really, that can happen with any of these scales. So like the next one that comes after that shape, it's D. So basically, we can just go start with the D. So D to D is D Dorian. And then E to E, E Phrygian. And F to F, F Lydian. So I did this here, the D Dorian. Oops. Which is the same thing as doing it over here. And we did E Phrygian starting here. Same thing as we did it over here. So, all kinds of ways of looking at this stuff. So the other thing that we didn't have time to go over, this right here. So yeah, anytime you deviate from that major scale is when you get your flats and your sharps, or like flat intervals and sharp intervals. So like really the only difference between Ionian and Dorian is we flat the 3rd note and the 7th note. And that's why it's a flat 3, because again, all this mode stuff, all this theory comes from the major scale. So basically just count those numbers in the major scale. Those are your intervals. Those are the distances we work with. So the 3rd interval is a major 3rd, is always 2 whole steps up. So when that 3rd note you use is a step and a half up, then that becomes a flat 3rd. 7th interval is always a half step below the octave of the root. And technically it's also just back here as well. You could just play the open E. So yeah, the 7th interval is always a half step below the root note. So the flat 7 is a whole step below the root note. And then Phrygian, you got a flat 2nd, flat 3rd, flat 6th, and flat 7. So if you wanted to take the Phrygian and turn it into Ionian again, you just raise the 2 up a half step, or the flat 2 up a half step, raise the flat 3 up a half step, and then the flat 6 and flat 7 also move it up a half step. Lydian, the only thing that's different between Ionian and Lydian is Lydian has a sharp 4. It's the only mode from a major key or minor key that has a sharp 4. Everything else will have some kind of flat. In the Mixolydian, the only thing that's different between Mixolydian and Ionian is the flat 7. Then here's your A minor scale with a flat 3, flat 6, and 7. And then Locrian. This one, the way I remember it, or the easy way for me to remember it, is everything but the 4 is flat. So it's got a flat 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. The 1 is not flat, because if you flat the 1, you just got a new 1. The 1 is the 1. It's just that. Now, I've seen some kind of weird mode name. Someone was trying to name something in harmonic minor, and they called it, I don't remember exactly what they called it, but it started as something sharp 1. Basically, they only altered like that one interval. I was like, alright, I get what they're trying to say, but I don't think that's like an official thing, an official way to look at it, because like 1 is your starting point. So if you ever see something that has a sharp 1, like, yeah, I wouldn't pay much attention to that, because yeah, the 1 is the 1. That's home base. There is just the 1. No flat 1, sharp 1. It's just 1. But yeah, as always, we'll get more and more in depth, in detail with all this stuff as we continue to work together. We're just going to take our time with this stuff. Yeah, just start working on the diatonic stuff now. And just take your time getting those memorized. And any questions come up, let me know. Yeah, the old stuff from last time, we're done with that. That's out. No more of those. Yeah, just focus on the new stuff. Alright, now I think we covered it all. Alright, questions, let me know, and I'll see you next week.